Good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. I know it's been a while since I've done a Kate Bush album review. I think the last one I did was Hands of Love, I think. Yeah, Hands of Love and the Dreaming, I think I've done, and the remastered sets as well. So, this one, as the title suggests, is a review, Richard's review of 1989's The Sensual World. Hope you can see that. It's in its plastic wallet. Let's take it out. Original copy on vinyl. 1989, Kate's sixth studio album. Of course, the album before this was The Whole Story, which was a compilation, which did have new tracks on it, because it included a new vocal version, sorry I can't get this open, a new vocal version of Wuthering Heights, and also the promotional single for The Whole Story, Experiment 4. And then a couple of years later, this drops. I was in a very, not a strange time in my life, and excuse me if this turns into a bit of a vlog, but I wanted to also reflect on the time that it was released. I mean, this is 31 years ago. You know, it's a long time ago. And it was a significant time in my life for a number of reasons. So it's 1989, it's the end of the 80s. Things are changing rapidly. Technology still isn't anywhere near how it is today. Mobile phones aren't standard yet. Car phones may be more prevalent, and the large brick affairs. But yeah, they're not standard. CDs are just kind of breaking through, unless you've got lots of money, because they were expensive, and the players were expensive too. I didn't have one. People were still buying vinyl and cassettes. I had my copy of The Sensual World on vinyl and cassette for the car, because most of the time I was consuming music in my car, my little Ford Escort Popular Plus Mark II. Yes. And for me, I'd been living in London, and I'd moved back home to the northwest and was living with my parents at this moment. And I'd moved back to the northwest for a number of reasons, personal reasons, but when I moved back, which was I think the beginning of 88 or the end of 87, I can't remember, I was embraced by my group of friends, and we had a fabulous time. It was those years were great, golden memories. And I also hadn't kind of fully come out. So I was going through a mixture of emotions at this point in my life. And, you know, as usual, Kate delivers a fully rounded package of emotional tracks. And for many reasons, The Sensual World is one of Kate's most emotional albums. In her own words, she's described it as a collection of short stories, each with its own personality. She's also said that it was quite difficult to write, and we also know that she recorded this in her home studio, which she had built a number of years before. And it also comes along with a few promotional videos and a promotional interview from which this information is gained. She describes it as a female album full of female energy, and she talks in one interview about the recording industry being dominated by male energy, which she says there is nothing wrong with, but she felt as though she needed to fill this album with a female energy. And I think she hits the mark. I also have to show you the 12-inch. Oh, Richard, all fingers and thumbs today. That's the 12-inch. Original copy. Virtually mint condition, apart from a little bit of damage down here to the sleeve. Now, the interesting story about this, and all you Kate fans will know this, but this is a double grooved 12-inch. Yes. Scared the life out of me. I thought she was communicating with me psychically. I played this, went into my room at my mum and dad's and played this. Great. Thought I'll play it again because I love it. Played it again and there were no lyrics. I thought I was losing my mind. I ran downstairs to my parents who were sat watching TV and said, "You're not going to believe what's just happened." And they kind of looked at me blankly as if to say, "Oh, that's nice." And I honestly thought something was going wrong with me. And I played it again and again. No lyrics. Played it again, the lyrics came back. And I kind of put two and two together. There must be something to do with the record. And close inspection will show you quite clearly that there are two sets of grooves. Those of you who grew up playing vinyl and used to maybe inspect the vinyl quite closely, you can see that. So that was a real lovely trick. I've also got the 7-inch single, and I've also got the 7-inch single of Love and Anger and the picture disc of this woman's work. So there you go, that's my little Sensual World collection. Let's talk about the songs. The Sensual World, as most of you will know if you're Kate fans, is based on the Molly Bloom speech towards the end of Ulysses by James Joyce. Now, when I found this out, I thought, I'll buy a copy of Ulysses and I'll read it. Really? It's the most boring book I've ever attempted to read in my life. But the speech by Molly Bloom is fast-paced, no punctuation whatsoever. It reaches this sort of orgasmic conclusion where she's breathily saying, "Yes, yes." And I said, "Yes." And Kate basically based her song on that speech. At the time, she did apply to the James Joyce estate to use the original words, but was told no. And as we all know, she eventually got permission to do that and retitled the song Flower of the Mountain and re-recorded the song with the original words from James Joyce. And that was on the 2011 release Director's Cut. So we're not here to talk about that version, we're here to talk about the original version, The Sensual World, which we all know and love really well. It is such a beautiful song. The video really matched the song so well, and you can go and have a look at the video on YouTube. I'll try and put a link in for you. It's Kate walking through a forest, or dancing through a forest, doing a very unusual dance, as Kate always does, a very expressive dance movement. And she's basically being hit by different sensual experiences. There's sun, there's fire, there's moonlight, there's stars, there's rain, which looks a bit like hail, there's breeze, little floaty bits on the breeze going past her. It's like an enchanted forest that she's moving through, and she's experiencing all these senses that the forest is giving her. Now, if like me you enjoy walking through a forest, you know that, especially on a warm summer day, the forest is alive with life, and it assaults your senses, all of your senses. Touch, smell, maybe not taste, because I don't walk through forests trying the fruits of the forest, no. But you get the picture, you're assaulted, and this is what the video kind of shows. And the song is about the character, I presume Molly Bloom, coming to life, stepping out of the page into the sensual world and experiencing it for herself as a real person. So it's this sort of fantasy that characters in a book can come to life, which I love. So that's the sensual world. Give it a listen. It's a beautiful arrangement as well. Lovely natural instrumentation. It's a very exotic sound, but it's also a very fairy-like, magical sound to it. And in actual fact, the subject matter itself is kind of about sex. It's a very sensual, sexy song without it being like Barry White. You know, not that Kate Bush would ever be like Barry White, but, you know, you get my drift. It's not a sexy song in that way. So have a listen if you've never heard it. It's a beautiful track, beautiful. It's followed directly by Love and Anger. Kate says that this is one of the most difficult songs to put together, and she says that she doesn't really know what it's about, so we as the listener have to make our own minds up. To me, it's about relationships. It's about what relationships are based on, and it's about trust. Take away the love and the anger, and a little piece of hope holding us together. So it's about how fragile relationships can be, and how strong relationships can be as well. I kind of agree with her in a way. It's a difficult one to pin down unless you actually go through the lyrics and read them closely. But it also talks about dependency. What would we do without you? And how people lean on each other. But the video is totally disconnected to that. In the video, you've got some beautiful imagery of Kate with an orb and scepter, basically in a spotlight with glitter falling on her. And you've got a row of ballet dancers, then you've got some whirling dervishes, and then you kind of cut to her singing along with the band. So it's kind of fun, but I guess there are some hidden meanings in there as well. I've never really got to the bottom of them. I've always taken it on the merit of the lyrics. I think it's about relationships, and I think it's about the fragility and the strength of relationships, depending on the amount of love or anger that there is in the relationship. A lot of anger in a relationship can render the relationship completely unstable, and it can fall apart. The song also talks about how we build on relationships. We're building the house of the future together. What would we do without you? So it's a relationship song. That's it, pure and simple. I'm not going to harp on about it any further because I've got much more to say and I don't want this to go on for days. The next track is The Fog. Now, totally different kettle of fish. The Fog is a soundscape. It kind of gives you the same feeling that some of the songs on the Ninth Wave give you. The themes are to do with trust, growing up, relationships, having faith in your own abilities to succeed at something, and the learning process. For example, she equates her fear of relationships in this song to the fear of learning to swim when she was a child. And in fact, her father appears on this song. Just put your feet down, child, 'cause you're all grown up now. are the words that he speaks. And we're taken into this soundscape, which is kind of a little bit spooky in places. There are some very deep strings and some very big sweeping strings as well. I think it's Nigel Kennedy featuring on this track. And there are birds, there are seagulls, there's a feeling of being on a beach, and there's this maelstrom at one point, and it's kind of almost horror filmy in a sense. You know, there are some very strident strings. It also sounds a little bit Japanese at one point. It's a beautiful track, but it's a little bit scary, and it's connected with water. It's connected with the fog, that sense of not being able to see through the fog, not know what's on the other side of it. And to me, that was about the other side of the experience, whatever that experience is, learning to swim, relationships, having fear around something. It's about that, you know, I can't see what the result is going to be, what the resolution will be. The fog's obscuring that. And water is naturally meant to be connected to emotions, deep, dark water. I think she says at one point, it was deep and dark like the water was the day I learned to swim. As I say those words, I get a chill because I recall the emotion of the song. It's an amazing track, and it starts you off on this journey and deposits you very gently. And then we go into reaching out. Reaching out is a difficult one, reaching out. Because it's a beautiful song. It's really beautiful. It's very uplifting. But it's also slightly saccharine in a sense. There's lots of very sweet strings. It's a story about how we reach out to people, how nature reaches out to the sunlight instinctively, see how the flower leans instinctively towards the light. It talks about how we are reaching out most of the time in life, how it's good to reach out, how we benefit from reaching out. And it has a very soaring chorus. Actually, I'll share something with you. Many years ago, I was driving along, obviously many years ago, because it was when this album came out. I was driving along in my car, and I did spontaneously burst into tears during this track. And I think it's because it is quite joyous. And if it catches you in the right way, it takes you with it, and you feel the emotion of exactly what she's trying to say. But it's relatively simplistic. And it's relatively light. And I think it's designed that way because the next track we go to is relatively dark. So I'm just going to have a bit of my tea. Excuse me. Have some of your tea if you're drinking it. Good old builder's tea. So, yes, Heads Were Dancing, the final track on the first side, or the fifth track, if you're listening to it on CD. Is it the fifth track? Yeah. Okay, I'm not going to give the secret of this song away because, as I've said before, I think the beauty of listening to a Kate Bush song is trying to work out what it's about. And it's not my business to tell you what it's about. It's my business to give you my feelings around it. Heads were dancing. So the title suggests heads were dancing as a toss of the coin. And indeed, that's what this song is about. It's about a woman who is at a dance and a guy comes up to her and says to her, "Hey, heads were dancing," flips a coin. Tails were not. And yeah, the coin is heads and they dance. And it's only until the next day, when she sees a headline in the paper, that she realises who this person is that she's been dancing with. And they're not a very nice person at all. One of the lines from the song is, they say that the devil is a charming man, and just like you, I bet he can dance. Says it all. So have a listen to it. For me, this is a very dark track. It's got a very modern feel to it production-wise. It's got a very interesting groove, and it builds and builds to a crescendo which is almost cacophonous, almost is discordant in places. And it builds you up to a crescendo and then just sort of peters out very quickly. It does have a dark feeling around it. It has a powerful feeling to it and a very scary feeling to it. And some of Kate's tracks do. They do have that scary movie quality to them in terms of the arrangements, very often to do with the strings. So I'm not going to tell you any more about that. Discover who the mystery person is on Heads Were Dancing. Yeah. You'll thank me later. So, side 2. Side 2. Oh yeah. How could I forget? Track 1 on side 2 is Deeper Understanding. Now, we talked earlier about technology in 1989. And this is a song about a man, or a person, I should say these days, shouldn't I? This song is about a person who becomes addicted to a piece of technology that enables his computer to communicate with him. Sound familiar? Yeah, exactly. There are billions of people now addicted to their phones, including me. And he's so addicted to it that he becomes estranged from his family and forgets to eat, forgets to sleep, forgets to do all those things that the body requires for health. And he does kind of get rescued by his family, but how prophetic was that? During the next decade, people will start becoming addicted to technology. And that has happened, it's with us now. There are people who are addicted to gaming. There are people who are addicted to being on the phone, being on the computer. It's become an everyday, minute-to-minute preoccupation for many people, which is really interesting. And that's what this song is about. I love Deeper Understanding. And of course, we are hearing the trio Bulgarka providing the most incredible backing vocals. They're a trio of singers, and the sound that they create with their voices together is something very special. It seems to crack through the air and pierce into your being. And the blend of harmonies and the way that their vocals work together is just beautiful. So we're hearing them for the first time, I think, on this album. Let me just check that. Yeah, this is their introduction with Kate to Oz. There is a moment in Deeper Understanding, and I can't describe it musically, where it just feels sublime. And I think it's after, or I think it's just as we go into the middle age. It's just incredible. Such a beautiful song. So check it out. The next track is Between a Man and a Woman. I think if there was any track on this album that was my least favourite, it probably would be this one. This is about two people who are having difficulties in their relationship, and it's about basically a third party sticking their nose in. It's beautifully arranged, and it's perhaps a little jangly, but it's... I don't know what to say about it, really. I have less to say about this track as I do for Love and Anger. It's okay. It's about relationships. It's about, I guess, people trying to patch up a breakup. It's definitely about somebody interfering in a relationship, and the person is saying, this is between the man and the woman. Don't interfere. Can't you see you're in the way? I don't know. Had somebody had an affair? I don't know. Make up your own mind. So the next track is Never Be Mine. I have to say, this is one of my favourite tracks on the album. It's one of those tracks that has a feeling about it, a most definite feeling of being in a certain place at a certain time and recalling the feeling around unrequited love. The opening lyrics to the track are, I look at you and see my life that might have been, your face just ghostly in the smoke. They're setting fire to the cornfields as you're taking me home. The smell of burning fields will now mean you and here. And this is where I want to be. This is what I need. But I know that this will never be mine. And I just find that lyric so heartbreaking. If you've ever been in a situation where you know that somebody that you love or fallen in love with doesn't love you, and that relationship will never be yours. The thrill and the hurting. I know that this will never be mine. Heartbreaking. The arrangement is beautiful. It's one of those songs that creeps in and starts. Just listen to it. Open your ears and listen. It's a lovely track. Never Be Mine. And then we explode into Rocket's Tail. Firework night used to be one of my favourite things. I'm dead against fireworks now. I think they're a waste of money and time. They're polluting, they're noisy, a lot of people don't like them. It's a waste of money. But when this came out, I was still firmly into Firework Night. Very much so, very much so. And this is all about somebody dressing up as a firework and throwing themselves off a bridge, basically. And this track sort of, for me, it recreates that excitement of watching a rocket fly into the sky and explode. It does build to a crescendo. it's kind of got a dark undertone to it. You know, this sort of image of somebody dressing up as a rocket and throwing themselves off a bridge is, I'm taking that literally there, but it's quite dark, but it's amazing. It's an amazing track. It has a real strong energy to it, and it's also got a real weirdness to it because the blend of Kate's vocals with the trio Bulgarka go together to create this very, very unique sounding blend of harmonies, and you'll never hear anything like it, ever. Give it a whirl, see what you think. Rocket's Tale. The final track on this version of the album is This Woman's Work, which is the story of a couple. The wife or the partner is pregnant and she goes into labour, and it's the story of the man and how helpless he feels whilst the woman is going through the process of giving birth, and all the fears, all of the emotions that are going through his head. We sense there's possibly been some kind of complication and it's touch and go. And we're hoping that the conclusion will be okay. And again, it is, I mean, these songs, many of these songs on this album build to crescendos very often. You know, none of them are real slow burners. They really move along quite quickly, build to a crescendo, and then drop you and leave you in your emotional state. And this song has been used for many emotional campaigns. I think Kate has probably given this track away quite a lot to good effect, because it does elicit an emotional response. I think it was one of the most downloaded tracks ever. I think it's, you know, I know certainly when music was available for download, this was one of the really big downloaded tracks. So I think it's done well for Kate, This Woman's Work. I have to say, it is beautiful, but it's not one of my favourite tracks. I'm not into really, really feminine, what I call schmaltzy tracks. Hate to say it, I know it's a loved track by a lot of people, but it is a bit too sugar sweet for me. And that's fine. You know, you can't like all of Kate's music if you're a fan. I'm a big fan, as you know, but I don't love everything she does. You know, some things I love more than others, some things I absolutely find amazing. You know, that's how it goes. Now, if you have got the CD version finishes with Walk Straight Down the Middle, which I love. I absolutely love. And for me, that track is all about fear. Facing fear head on, despite your difficulties in life, despite feeling frozen with fear. You've got to head it straight on and walk straight down the middle. He thought he was going to die, but he didn't. She thought she just couldn't cope, but she did. We thought it was all over, but it wasn't. It hadn't started yet. So no matter what you are fearful of, you have to head it straight on. You have to grab that fear with both hands, walk straight down the middle. I remember being told by my mum that if I ever encountered a group of people in the street that I was afraid of, just to walk straight through the middle of them. And you know what? I still do that today. When I see a gang of kids on the corner of the street and I think, oh, blimey, better cross over. I don't. I walk straight through them. Straight through them. Looking straight ahead. Nothing's ever happened to me. So, of course, nowadays you've got to be careful, but I don't necessarily recommend that course of action with the state of knife crime as it is in London. But yeah, you know, that's what this song is all about. Heading your fears straight on. Getting on with it. Walk straight down the middle. So, that's it. That's it. That's my review of this album. I hope I wasn't too wordy. I tried to be, well, I've tried in this one to be as concise as possible with my brief feelings around the songs. Just to talk about the album in general, the beautiful artwork, black and gold. Beautiful, beautiful picture. KT symbol not always obvious on this one. You have to try and find it yourself, and if you don't know what I mean, each Kate album has a KT symbol on it somewhere, and it's your job to find them all. I'm not going to tell you where they are. No. Find them yourself. But I love this artwork, and I especially love the artwork for the single as well. Just stunning. Beautiful picture of Kate. She's always photographed well. And of course we've got the usual musicians on this album, the people that follow her from album to album usually, engineered I think by Del Palma. And yeah, we waited for this album to come out. It was a good few years after Hounds of Love, and we weren't disappointed. In actual fact, I heard a preview of this album before it came out. I had a friend who knew somebody, I think, at Homeground magazine, and they sent him a copy, it wasn't a demo, it was like a promo copy. I don't know whether it was all the tracks, but it was certainly a good few. And yeah, I heard it a few months before it came out, which was great, at a friend's flat in Manchester. So yeah, love it, always loved it. An interesting album, Very busy album in many ways. I guess some people would say slightly overproduced, but Kate is a fan of that maximalist approach. Was a fan of that, because 50 Words for Snow is not maximalist, it's minimalist. So maybe she's moving in the other direction now. I love both approaches. And you know, this was well produced, very well produced. Complex, emotional, little bit of a roller coaster in places, an enjoyable listen. So try it, stream it, download it, buy it, whatever you do, enjoy it. And I'll see you very soon. Take care. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.